You're standing in a job queue that stretches around the block. It's the mid-1900s. Work is scarce. A man with a clipboard says he's hiring for a company that helps women find employment. He seems kind. He seems safe. You have no way of knowing that saying yes to him will be the last decision you ever make. This is the story of Moses Sithole, the man South African newspaper will come to call the ABC killer. To understand what happened, you have to understand the moment. South Africa in the mid-1900s was a country in transition. Apartheid had just ended. Unemployment was brutal, especially for black women in townships around Johannesburg. Desperation was everywhere, and desperation, it turns out, is exactly what a predator looks for. Moses Sithole was born on the 17th of November 1964 in Vosloorus, a township near Boksburg. His family had almost nothing. When Sithole was just 5 years old, his father died. His mother, unable to feed 5 children alone, made an unthinkable choice. She walked her kids to a police station and left them there. She told them never to admit she was their mother. What happens to a child abandoned like that? Sithole and his siblings were sent to an orphanage in KwaZulu-Natal. He would later describe being mistreated there. After 3 years, he ran. He eventually landed with an older brother, trying to rebuild something like a normal life. But something in him had already broken. In 1987, Sithole was accused of raping a woman in Johannesburg. It wasn't the last accusation. 2 years later, in February 1989, a woman named Buyiswa Doris Swakamisa walked into a police station and reported that Sithole had attacked and raped her. She gave a detailed statement. Police found him, he went to trial, insisted he was innocent, and was convicted anyway. He served roughly 6 years for the assault. Here's the detail that should chill you. While inside, Sithole later claimed he was sexually assaulted by other inmates. Whatever he took from that experience, it wasn't remorse. According to those who later studied the case, he came out of prison fixated on one idea: victims can be witnesses, and witnesses can put you away. He decided that from then on, his victims would never get the chance. He was released in 1994. Within months, women started disappearing. Sithole built himself a front. He created a fake organization, one that publicly claimed to fight child abuse and help unemployed women find work. Think about that for a second. A predator marketing himself as a protector. He used that cover to approach women in townships hit hardest by unemployment. Women who had every reason to trust a man offering a job interview. He would meet them, gain their confidence, and then lead them or drive them to an isolated open ground on the outskirts of the city. What happened next followed a horrifying pattern. Investigators later found that victims were beaten, stripped, raped, and strangled, often with their own clothing. Several were found with their hands bound behind their backs. One still had a blindfold on. In case after case, killers leave clue about their psychology without meaning to. Sithole left his in the way some victims were found with fabric draped across their faces, almost as if he couldn't stand to be looked at, even by the dead. The murders began in Atteridgeville, a township west of Pretoria. Then they moved to Boksburg, then to Cleveland, a suburb of Johannesburg. 3 locations. 3 starting letters, A, B, C. That's where the nickname came from, and it stuck fast, because by the time journalists coined it, the body count was already staggering. So how does a country catch a killer moving between 3 cities, targeting women who have no support network to report them missing? Slowly, and at first, wrongly. South Africa in this period was almost unbelievably dealing with more than one serial killer active at the same time. Investigators were stretched thin. For a while, another man was mistakenly linked to some of the ABC killings, a mix-up that only helped the real killer stay hidden longer. Many of the victims were never formally identified at all, which made connecting the crimes even harder. Police eventually brought in international profiling expertise to help make sense of the pattern. The break came through something painfully small. One of the victims, a woman named Amanda Tete, had been romantically involved with Sithole. Her credit card use after her death helped lead investigators toward a suspect named David Selepe, who was killed in a confrontation with police. For a moment, it looked like the case might be closed, but the murders didn't stop, which meant Selepe wasn't acting alone or wasn't the real killer at all. By August 1995, detectives connected a surviving witness account and physical evidence back to Sithole specifically. They pulled his history and found the earlier rape convictions sitting right there in the file. The physical description matched, the pattern matched. There was just one problem. Nobody could find him. His wife had thrown him out months earlier in December 1994 after learning what kind of man she'd married. Sithole had been living on the street ever since, moving constantly, staying invisible. Police released his photograph to the media and asked the public for help. And then, Sithole did something almost nobody expects a hunted man to do. He picked up a phone and called a South African journalist. He identified himself. He claimed responsibility. Why would a man on the run announce himself to the press? Some investigators believed he wanted their attention. Others believed he was taunting the police who'd been chasing him for months. Either way, the call gave officers a location to work from. On the 6th of November 1995, Moses Sithole was arrested. The trial that followed exposed the true scale of what he'd done. Prosecutors built a case around dozens of murders and rapes committed across barely a year. In 1997, Sithole was convicted on 38 counts of murder and 40 counts of rape, along with additional robbery charges. The court handed down a sentence of 2,410 years in prison, a number so large it functions less as a practical sentence and more as a statement. South Africa doesn't have the death penalty. This was the closest the justice system could come to saying, "You will never see the outside of a cell again." Some who've studied the case argue the real death toll was higher still, pointing to two women, Martha and Brigitte, who Sithole is believed to have infected with HIV before their deaths from the disease. If you count them, the toll climbs even further. Officially, though 38 murders stand on record, alongside dozens more women who survived his attacks and had to live with what he did to them. What makes the Moses Sithole case so difficult to sit with isn't just the number of victims, it's the method. He didn't hunt strangers in dark alleys, he built trust first. He offered hope to women who had almost none left, then used that hope as bait. In a country trying to rebuild itself after apartheid, in communities where a job interview could mean the difference between feeding your family and not, Sithole weaponized the one thing his victims couldn't afford to be suspicious of, the promise of opportunity. Decades later, Moses Sithole remains behind bars as Manangwa Correctional Center. He has, at times, sought parole. He has been denied. For the families of his victims, especially those whose loved ones were never formally identified, there was never a body to bury. Never a name read out in court, only the quiet, permanent absence of someone who went looking for work and never came home. We are standing in a job queue that stretches around the block. It's the mid-1900s. Work is scarce. A man with a clipboard says he's hiring. This time, we know exactly what kindness can hide. And maybe that's the only justice a story like this can still offer. Decades on. Not closure, just the chance for someone else to recognize the danger before it's too late.